Well, Dr. Lynn, very happy to be talking with you here today. Very excited to share a little bit about what you got going on your side. You've been a customer of ours for quite some time now at this point, so your insight is so valuable when it comes to the progress that we've made on our end. And to just get a little introduction, do you mind just kind of saying who you are and a little bit about yourself and the practice that you have going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate it, Ethan. So my name is Dr. Casey Lynn. I'm a pediatric specialist, pediatric dentist in Apollo Beach, Florida. It's right outside of Tampa Bay. I started my practice there about 8 years ago now. Opened up from ground up, kind of started de novo straight out of residency and kind of jumped into business. Had no idea what I was doing. But here we are 8 years later with a team of like 17, 18 people where you've got another full-time doctor and a part-time orthodontist. So we've just been growing steadily.
Awesome, awesome. And you kind of already hit on it going in. My first question is when people think of dental practices, right, they're not usually thinking the business end, right? And so want to share just a little bit about your history. I mean, same thing. I mean, you're a very intelligent person, went through a lot of schooling, not so much on the business end. And so what have you kind of learned as it comes to the business side of the practice?
It was a lot of trial and error, but business wise, we get minimal education in school. We get like a couple courses that are just like, hey, don't sign this contract. Make sure you sign this contract. And that's really it. So, did a lot of self education, a lot of reading, a lot of leadership books, a lot of business books. Worked with a lot of mentors too, people that are smarter than me. Didn't recreate the wheel and kind of learn from them. But the biggest thing you learn as a owner dentist is you are running a business 90% of the time and doing dentistry 10% of the time. So it's a big learning curve up front. Once you kind of stumble a few times and get through your hiccups, you kind of learn where you came from and don't make those same mistakes. It does get easier as you go. Growth is always the stressful aspect, and spending more money before you're ready for it and just kind of planning ahead. And that's where a lot of the numbers come along. Like being able to plan accordingly has helped me a ton in practice, and being able to like kind of put my neck out a little bit, knowing that cash flow is good and we can extend a little bit month to month and just kind of make those stepping stone growth patterns that I was looking for the whole time.
Definitely, definitely. And thinking back to those early days of getting things up and running, what were the biggest challenges that you kind of came up to, the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome when it came to the financial and the business portion of the practice?
Yeah, really understanding the basics of revenue, what you're producing versus what you're collecting, that difference cash flow wise, the bills you have to pay versus things you can hold off on. I think that was my biggest learning curve, just managing, kind of making sure I had money in the bank to run the practice, making sure I had reserves in case of emergency, aka COVID. I lived through that one. And luckily was prepared financially for it. But those were kind of the hardest things to navigate. And now it's at a different level, revenue wise, we're way different than where we were as we started with just myself and two, people working for me. So now I have to really analyze where we're at, when to open a new chair, when to make a new hire. And all of those things come with just kind of knowing my numbers and my KPIs like the back of my hand, and knowing where my business stands. It helps a ton.
Definitely, definitely. And you've been a customer of ours for a number of years now on your side, and you've seen a lot of growth from the clinic on your end too as well. What is the some of the biggest positives that have come out of working with us and having kind of these different systems actually now engaged with the business?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest aspect is it's pretty seamless. Like I don't have to do much. And when I'm jumping on to the dashboard or kind of jumping in and seeing where I'm at, I like that it's at a glance. I can kind of just open it up, take a peek, use that as like a reference point. And then I still dive into some of my own numbers and make sure like, from an embezzlement side of things are running the way they're supposed to underneath the surface, and just kind of covering my tracks there. But it gives me a lot of peace of mind knowing that over the year, like you guys have it handled on the real number sense. And if something seems out of whack, I will just get a response from one of the team members that we have with you guys, and they make it super simple. Communication's quick, it's easy, and I don't have to really think twice about it.
Definitely, definitely. And we kind of already hit on this, and I want to highlight the point that we see a lot of customers that come in. They're kind of all different stages of life within the business cycle, right? A lot of the younger businesses usually look at the numbers as a way to just file taxes at the end of the year, right? And as they start to progress, they start to view it as, how do I manage growth? How do I focus in on my most profitable areas or cut my expenditures? You're kind of in that area where you're in that good growth stage, right? And so being that you have this data accessible on a day-to-day basis in there, what does that impact in terms of the decisions? What type of decisions are you now able to make because you have that clarity ready to go?
I think the easiest thing for me is like with big purchases, like I've already planned ahead for those. So when I go, like we did a huge like marketing mural deal in the office we did a big expansion last year. So the expansion itself was a big investment that we more than doubled the size of the practice. And I had to know my numbers getting into that, of course, and with the banking and everything. But like knowing like, hey, yeah, I can spend 15 grand on that, marketing deal because we planned accordingly 6 months ago knowing that this was going to happen, knowing where my numbers were, I could start funneling things off and making sure that that's just a easy payment. I don't have to like recoup it. There was nothing to kind of track back down on the financial front. Hiring, I think, is my biggest one because payroll is obviously the biggest expense that we have as dentists, especially pediatric dentists. We have a lot of mouths in the office. We have a lot of team members running chairs, and we're pretty high volume in the pediatric side. So those are the bigger decision making things. Like I ended up interviewing a couple of great assistants my last hire round, and I was really just looking for one. But knowing my numbers, I was able to hire both of the good assistants, knowing like, hey, I don't want to miss out on having a good team member. And the decision tree was easy because I had that in the back of my pocket, knowing where I was on the financial front, and that opening that extra chair with that second assistant will get us to our revenue goals faster.
Definitely, definitely. And it just popped in my head. The idea, the question that I have. So, why pediatric dentistry? I mean, it's the more niche area, right? You're dealing with kids and getting might bite the
Yeah.
finger off in some cases. Why pediatrics? Just out of curiosity.
Like I went to dental school not expecting to be a pediatric dentist. If you asked me my first year of school, like tier of specialties. I wanted to specialize. I knew I was going to, work hard and try to do good in school. So I gave myself options, but I would have said peds was last. Like, there's no way I'm going to be an orthodontist or I'm going to be an oral surgeon or something. I kind of just gravitated towards it. I went on a couple mission trips as a second, third year in dental school, and it was a lot of kid-based dentistry. And, the attendings were very encouraging. Like, hey, you got a knack for behavior management. And as I got into it, it's fun because kids like say whatever they want. They have no filter. And like kids can be difficult, but adults can be just as difficult. And I'd rather work with a kid whose brain is still developing and they have an excuse for being, not cooperative versus adults because they're just as bad. So now my job's a lot of fun. We run a very preventative based office and a lot of minimally invasive dentistry. So I'm not having to like do a ton of really hard dentistry like some people in my field are. And it's just, it's really rewarding to just keep kids healthy and have them grow up and graduate out of the office as a productive member of society with no cavities.
Definitely. No, and the reason I ask that is it's so funny the amount of business owners that I get to talk to on a day-to-day basis where the reason that they got into their owning their business, it's not about finances, it's not about any of those things. It's to make an impact, make a difference, especially when it comes to anything dealing with children in your case, right? Pediatric dentistry, it's making a big impact. It's creating a smile on a kid, right? I couldn't think of anything more fun to be able to work in types of an industry that it's so much fun to actually see the passion on that side, but then also hear that the decisions from the financial and the business sense are also being covered so that way you can focus directly on that passion, right? That it's
Yeah.
so nice to see that when it comes to the business owners in that end. And so, Casey, what advice would you give to other dentists in the space that maybe are struggling with the financial side or trying to manage the business component? That, just as you said, right, we took a couple of classes that are kind of in that point of guessing, hoping they're making the right decision. What type of advice would you give to those guys on your side?
First thing I recommend any like new dentist getting out of school or has aspirations to open is read as much as you can. The online resources available, whether it be forums, books, AI now can compile a lot of this for you. Read a lot because that's where you're going to get just like the fundamentals of like, what's a KPI? What numbers should I be looking for? Where are my percentages that I should be shooting for each month? And then like know your numbers, like put down a game plan where you want to be, set goals monthly, set goals daily, set goals, for 5 years out. And it really gives you kind of a trajectory to work towards and then work backwards on like, okay, if I want to be at $5 million in 10 years, per year revenue, what do I need to be at on a per patient basis? If I'm seeing 40 patients a day, and then just work the decision tree backwards. And that makes like that long goal, like way down the road, so much easier to touch. And then when you're in business, like know your numbers. Like if I talk to a dental office owner and they don't know like off the top of their head the basic KPIs, what their business is doing, their business is likely not doing good. They're not they may like look great on paper, but they don't have good EBITDA and they're not a good business. I try to be a good business. I try to do the best I can in the mouth, do the best to keep kids healthy and be a huge part of the community. But at the end of the day, like as you grow your business, like you have more team members to feed, like you are paying their bills. So for me, that's like a very big burden to make sure you're doing well. And you want to make sure like the numbers are in front of you because there's so many guys who really have no idea what they're doing. They're just like taking money out of the account like it's a piggy bank and not kind of structuring it correctly. A lot of that comes with, good advisors and a good CPA team and stuff. But when you're starting out, you can't afford like the Mac Daddy of all these advisors. You have to kind of learn on your own before you can really get into the big boy stuff. And if you know your numbers and you read a lot, like you're going to be fine. Business is not that confusing. It's like make more than you spend and know how to do it correctly on the month to month, and you're going to do great.
Definitely, definitely, and I think that brings us to the next spot pretty nicely. What do you think the future looks like? What is the systems and the practices of the future need to incorporate starting today to be able to make it the long term from now going forward, right? I mean, you'd already kind of hit on the AI component, right? Being able, I mean, just educating yourself more than anything about what's going on in a lot of different places. What do you actually think the future holds when it comes to the dental practices?
I think the biggest aspect is AI, I think, will get to the point where you will be able to, in a sense, replace team members, but they're the team members that are not directly patient focused. They're your insurance coordinators or your, claim submission people and, sending statement type stuff, like the busy work that doesn't really contribute to how well a practice does on the exterior or face value. That's what I'm trying to navigate and make sure, hey, like if I am paying an employee 40,000 a year, but I can find something for 5,000 a year, like that is money that I can then reload back into the business and grow it. And that's the way I think about it. If I'm making more money, I don't think, oh, that's me. Let's go to Italy on vacation. It's like, no, let's put it back into the business, strategically utilize those money sources and make more money in the long run. That's my mentality with it, but, everybody's gonna have their own wants and goals. For me, I wanna have live comfortably, make sure my team is taken care of, make sure they're paid better than most, and at the end of the day, I think that's where I'm trying to navigate AI as it's going, kind of filtering through what's working, what's not. I've demoed a ton of different AI services, and some are great, some are not there yet, but I think the kind of exponential like learning curve that's coming with it, it's going to be there sooner than we think. And I think a lot of business owners are just like kind of sitting back and still working in, 1999 in a sense on paper charts and not trying to do what your patient base and in my circumstance, we always say like parents and patients. I'm trying to make it as easy for the parents, like for them to do paperwork, get their stuff paid for, make sure everything is seamless on that end, less paper in the office. For my team, I try to create less steps for them so they can engage with patients more. I don't want them doing a ton of busy work. And I think that's where the business is in the future, especially with dentistry. It's a very in person, intimate thing. You're in a very personal space. I think we as dentists will be one of the last ones to lose to the robots in a sense. But I do want to utilize the tech and make the experience better for everybody by kind of paying attention to it.
Definitely, definitely. Well, Dr. Lynn, much appreciate the time that you took here today. The absolute fantastic answers that you're able to give, and also want to say thank you. You've been one of the longest customers with Uplink. You got with us very, very early in the
Yep.
operation, so very happy that you've been sticking with us, and excited to see the growth in the business on your side, and very excited also to see what the future brings too as well. And
Awesome.
so appreciate all the time, and look forward to catching up with you again here soon.
Thanks a lot, Ethan. I appreciate it.
Awesome, thank you.